Antonella, perhaps you'd be kind enough to tell us a little bit about yourself, just to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for inviting me at this very interesting panel. And so let's start talking who is Sparkle. Sparkle is a global service provider. We are a telco operator global. So we have 33 legal entities worldwide. And more than that, we have 600,000 kilometers of fibers through which we provide services, connectivity, cloud, security, whatever is the need for both enterprises and wholesale customers. And my long title is just to say that I'm responsible of the product marketing and the product management for a line that serves the multinational enterprises and the operators that provide services to their enterprises.
Okay, so thank you for that. So it seems to me it might be a good place to start, Antonella, with a snapshot of where we are with NaaS's progress, because it's something that's talked about for so long and not much seemed to happen for a long time. It's certainly proved a challenge to implement. So maybe you could tell us about your experience with NaaS and where Sparkle is.
Yeah. Annie, you're right that what's behind the concept behind the network as a service has been around for at least 1 decade with different names. So I would like to start with the definition. What is the NaaS today, network as a service? And I will use the definition of the MEF, the Metro Ethernet Forum, the standardization body, because I think it's very clear and it points to some aspects that are really relevant. So network as a service by definition is the composition of on-demand connectivity, cybersecurity, application awareness, and multi-cloud networking on demand. So practically, what we want to say with NaaS today is something like cloud-inspired networking. So everything that is networking and all its addendum features that are provided on demand. So starting with this definition, I really think that, and knowing that in the past there have been a few attempts to achieve this objective, I think that now is exactly the right moment for this to happen for two main reasons. The first is that the telco requirements, the telco needs, and the customer requirements in this moment are both there. So it's not just that there are customer urgencies, but also the telcos have the need to change a paradigm and to become shifting from being just an infrastructure provider to something that is more like a platform that provides value added. And to do so, everything that has to do with automation and with on-demand helps streamlining the processes and achieving this objective. So on one side, we have the telco needs. On the other side, the needs of the customers that were taken into consideration years ago when the concept was introduced are more urgent now. And if I just mention three of them, the need is, first of all, to provide flexible networks because applications are dynamic, there are data everywhere. So the needs of a connectivity that is everywhere and it is pretty dynamic is there. Second is to shift for the customer to shift from a CapEx to OpEx model because as the network are so dynamic and so variable and so complex at a certain point, investing CapEx is not the right choice for customers. And last but not least, and it will be especially in the future very relevant, programmability. So having all in one-stop shop, all the additional services that are not just connectivity or not just a security, but a bundle of services that all together provide the experience. And let me say that as a Sparkle, we lived exactly this process, this temporary process. So we used to have, and we have started a few years ago, on-demand services, Ethernet bandwidth on demand, Cloud Connect on demand. But it was exactly at the end of last year, so this year, that we launched our first NaaS native product.
Okay.
It is called Quantum Safe over Internet, QSI, which is an advanced security feature that was born exactly according to the NaaS model. And this is because as Sparkle, we followed this wave and we embraced this model just now.
So could I ask why you chose that particular service, Antonella, the quantum safe um, over the internet service, to give it its
Yeah,
full title, I think?
yeah, yeah. See, let's say like this. As I mentioned previously, we already had in the roadmap the development of automated services, on-demand services. But then, on top of the portfolio of the connectivity of the cloud that we have, especially for enterprises, we always put a lot of focus on security. But we wanted, with this product, Quantum Safe over internet, to provide our customers with some advanced features for security because, we have 600,000 kilometers of fiber, so a lot of assets and a lot of responsibility in front of our customers. And we know that the quantum computers are posing a threat that maybe is not well known today, but the store now, decrypt later attacks are there today. So we wanted to put our customers and of course our own assets safe against any potential attack related to quantum. So that's why we choose a security. We really accelerated on the security features. But then, based on a strategic decision, we wanted to provide this service already through the NaaS platform. And the innovation was exactly like this, putting an overlay service, security service, combined with this new model, new consumer model for customers. And that's why.
That's really interesting, Antonella, because the topics of security and also of trust have come up a great deal during this telco to techno conference. And I do think we're all aware that we live in sort of rather scarier times than we used to, probably. So I'm wondering, how has your quantum safe service been received in the market? I appreciate it's very early days.
Yes, let's say like this. It's a pretty fresh product. We launched it
Yeah.
in December last year, but I can mention the experience that we got at the Mobile World Congress this year. We were there, hosted by the Intel booth, by the way, and we had a live installation showing different kind of VPNs from Barcelona to Athens and implemented with the quantum safe encryption as we are provided. And I have to say that it has been impressive response by customers, by demand. With the booth was always full, asking a lot of questions with a lot of follow-up. But I have to say that what really was liked is not only the innovation in terms of security, but the fact that it was so easy to order and to implement, because we really showed our NaaS platform with the customer portal and we showed how easy it was to enable or disable this functionality. And this is exactly online with the new concept of consume the network resources or the additional features. Maybe customers may not want to enable this functionality for 1 year. Because the pattern of the data today are different than in the past. Especially if you consider, for instance, AI, maybe you needed to train AI for 1 week, and then maybe you need to put in security the connectivity between your data center and the data center with AI for that specific week. But then maybe you don't need the super high secure post-quantum encryption anymore. And so you need to be able to disable and to enable this functionality according to your need. And that's exactly what we showed and what we provide in this product.
So it sounds like for quite a few reasons that's the right product at just the right time. I'm just wondering as well, what would you say the other drivers are for NaaS and also how they're evolving? I guess we've kind of talked about that to some extent already because of the desire for increased security and on demand. I'm just wondering though how else it's changing. And another question that occurs to me is, do customers really understand what NaaS is and what it offers?
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the fact that as there have been so a bit of confusion in the past of what exactly is on demand, what is a self-service services. So I think there is a need of bit of awareness and coaching the customers on the expectations. Because something that is not said very often, but is reality, is that in order to implement an on-demand service, not on cloud, but on connectivity that has a lot of implications, and that in order to set up a service, a connectivity service, for instance, end-to-end, you really need to enable many partners and many pieces of the network to synchronously set up or tear down. So there are challenges in implementing NaaS. And so it's important that we educate the market to focus on exactly their needs, and also on the right expectations of what as a service providers can provide and is efficient for us and for them. So definitely the market, I think now there is a lot of much more attention than in the past of setting the expectation, and the standardization activity, of course, helps of that. If we talk about what are the drivers, I think a few of them, which are the most important ones, we mentioned, the fact of dynamic networks, so the possibility to order on demand. This is very important, the shifting by CapEx and OpEx, because that's another very relevant point. But for instance, there are other aspects that we need to consider. For instance, the sovereignty requirements, the geopolitical requirements. Customers, especially these days, they ask to have more control of their networks, of their resources. Whether it is a cloud, Kubernetes, or it is a connectivity, they really would love to see that their constraints of their requirements are satisfied. So giving a NaaS platform where they can order and choose and select and monitor the different components of their service is very important these days. And then I was mentioning also, the different data life cycle. So having the possibility to control the data and enable or disable the feature for that particular moment or state of the data in that particular transaction is very important. So the trends are there, the requirements are there for customers to ask the on-demand to us, which are service operators.
Okay, and given that the NaaS operational and business models rely on an ecosystem, presumably that means that standards are important because it's essential that the partners can work together. I just wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about that standardization and the most important developments and so on, because I know Sparkle's very involved.
Yeah. I mentioned previously, I started, mentioning MEF because I
Yes.
think that's so relevant. And if NaaS can happen today, is just because the timing and the ecosystem is mature enough to work together in a standardized way. So Sparkle is very active at MEF, defining the blueprint and the framework for a standardized, standard and automated ecosystem. And to me, the word ecosystem is so important because there is no operator nowadays, or no operators in the world that can provide an end-to-end service by itself. In order to, I was mentioning previously, in order to set up a service end-to-end, you really need many actors as part of this ecosystem that need to work together. So they need to understand each other and have the same understanding of what the service is and how to implement it. And this has to happen in minutes, in seconds. So you don't have time to exchange the semantic of a request with other partners. It has to be everything automatized. So the role of standards is super important. This is why Sparkle is so active at MEF in order to define this blueprint. This is really a game changer as it is today.
What, the new blueprint for MEF, you mean, is the game changer?
The blueprint and all the activities that start from that, the framework, the APIs, and the service definitions. In the previous speech, we were talking about Edge, the NaaS standardization covers the 360 degrees from the service to the APIs of all the different pieces, whether it is a cross connection at the data center, or if it is an edge resource, or it is the network, the fiber, the Ethernet VPN. In order to set up a NaaS experience, you really need to enable all these components with a standard approach.
Okay, so we really need to remember that APIs are not just for delivery of one thing. It's kind of key to automation, which is key to being able to provide NaaS on demand.
Absolutely, because APIs are not just left to right, in order to set up the full supply chain, let me say. But then there are also the north-south, in order you enable over the different layers of the network, from the infrastructure to, with all its different layers, to the billing, to the business level. So there are a lot of layers that have to mobilize in order to activate the service and or tear down and billing in the proper way. Consider, for instance, the legal aspects, because the NaaS is a paradigm shift. It's not just pushing a button. Everything will change. The moment the way you order, you deliver, but for instance, the way you build the service, the way you contract the service with your customers is not paper anymore. You will have everything that is digital, and standardization has to cover all these aspects.
I'm just wondering, Antonella, is there an issue with customers? We talked a little bit about, do customers understand the NaaS model and its possibilities? I'm just wondering as well, from the customer's point of view, how well geared up they are to buy services in this way, or do you think it will be a natural progression because they've got used to cloud?
Let's say like this, some customers are already asking now. Maybe they don't know that they are asking a NaaS feature, but they are asking automation. We have a very good customers, they're asking for this. So give me a push button that when I push the order for this service starts in your systems. So they are asking for NaaS. There will be a natural progression for us. And of course, when I defining Sparkle previously, I was saying we provide services to enterprise customers, but also to wholesale customers, so operators like us. My expectation is that, of course, operators will be our first NaaS customers because they are acquainted with them, they are familiar with these concepts, and they really work on automation. And then smoothly, the bubble will enlarge and we will embrace all the enterprises.
And I guess it's good that you're working with so many other operators at MEF, within the Camera project, within TM Forum, and so on. You're working with the people who are going to be your customers to some extent.
Absolutely, absolutely. The good part of the standardization bodies, and you mentioned a few of them, but is that at that table we are all partners and we work for a common objective. So I work with Orange, I work with Colt, with Deutsche Telekom in order to achieve these objectives. There is no competition there. It's just evolving the ecosystem to a point of maturity that then is beneficial for everybody to develop their own business.
Okay, and of course we can't have this conversation, Antonella, without talking about AI, and because AI and automation go together like fish and chips or whatever. Maybe bolognese sauce and spaghetti. I don't know, whatever. So I'm wondering how you're seeing the role of AI in NaaS going forward. And I know, again, it's quite early days. And also, I'm not necessarily just talking about Gen AI, generative AI. I'm wondering just how you see the whole thing moving along.
Yeah. So let's say like this, that for service providers, AI is not new. I mean, if you take, for instance, cybersecurity has been based on AI engines since years. So the concept of the AI and the deployment of data with algorithms to make decisions is definitely something that is not new. What is true is that now, it went up into maturity level, and as an operator, we are using it internally, for instance, since a while to streamline common tasks, to simplify operations, for instance, for our customers, to do proactive services, to anticipate, for instance, a network degradation or network fault before customer really perceive, because we have so many data and so many powerful tools to do that. I don't see, so AI is there, is in our operation, is in our DNA, and it will be more and more. I don't see today AI necessarily combined with NaaS, at least not today. I think that they will go in parallel for a while, because in this moment, as I see, the priority for NaaS is really to establish as a framework, really to enable this wide ecosystem of partners that work together to provide all the services that the customer may need one shot. And then once the framework is established, and I think we are in a very good position there, then you can think of start, let me say, leveraging this platform, because in the end, NaaS is a platform from, let me say, in the northern direction. So starting programming that platform, because this is what is very interesting for telcos about NaaS. Once you have implemented your platform through APIs, then you can give the availability of these APIs to your customers, which can really start deploying the network for their most beneficial benefits. And the moment you enable the platform, then AI plays a very important role, because then really you can leverage AI to optimize whatever resources you are playing with. So I see AI super relevant in this programmability part of the network once the framework is ready to go.
So really, AI will play a bigger role in the next phase of NASA's progression.
Absolutely.
Kind of waiting in the wings right now.
Yes.
Do you think, do you expect a lot of experimentation for a long time with AI? Or do you feel what you want to do is clear?
No. I think experimentation is happening now, and we are part of that. We see a lot of initiatives because there is the need to understand how AI plays with the different kinds of technologies, underlay, overlay, security, and whatsoever up to the 8th level of the pile. So I'm expecting that we will do POC and the test for at least this full year, and then we will. But we are already seeing commercial products coming out that are really good. So it will be a progressing and enlarging sphere of interest for us, from ourselves, but also for our customers.
Okay, we have a question from the audience, Antonella. Somebody asks, do you see NaaS as an enabler for AI workloads? I think you kind of touched on this earlier, really. And do you have any use case in mind?
Yes. So let's say, so the answer is yes. So definitely the AI will be very important. It's not an enabler of the NaaS, no, but it will be an add-on to NaaS to really optimize what NaaS can provide in terms of platform and programmability. Use cases we have as many. I would split them into parts. The ones that are very useful for service providers. And I was mentioning previously, we already today deploy in our own systems, in our own processes, AI to streamline, to facilitate, to anticipate. So definitely there are very pragmatic use cases. But then there are use cases also for our customers, because where we put our effort as product management in Sparkle, especially since 1.5 years, is how AI can benefit my customer, not necessarily myself and my operation, which is very good because I make my network more efficient and my services more efficient, but how can I give value to my customers? And for instance, if I look AI to SD-WAN, just to make an example that is very popular now, if as the SD-WAN platform gives so many data and so many monitoring parameters of the customer's applications and network, and they combine them, for instance, for an operator like Sparkle that can manage the overlay and the underlay, I have all the data of the underlay, I have all the data of the overlay, and then I can combine together and maybe make suggestions to customers what best they can do to optimize their traffic or their application. And in fact, I have to say, in the definition of the MEF, I don't know, I don't recall if I mentioned, one of the characteristics is to be on demand, secure, but also application aware or application driven. And that's very important, you know. NaaS platform really wants at a certain point to arrive to the applications so that, you know, through the NaaS, you can really optimize your network based on the information that you get from the applications. So it's a good bundle of things that will be cool in the next years.
Okay, and you did mention at the start that if you're training a model, you might just need this link for a week. As
Exactly.
that whole demand nature seems to maybe suit our workloads.
Yeah, this is how we think the network will be. Now, you really use the network depending on when and how you need it. So I will have links that require super security because maybe I'm connecting to a very critical, mission critical party with mission critical data for the next week. And then the week after, I will go back to the normal transactions. And then I needed to disable that functionality. And the same applies to other functions, not necessarily security only. And this is the way of flexibility that we would like to give to our customers, knowing that there are constraints, that of course connectivity is not cloud, so you're not playing with virtual resources, you are playing with physical resources, with a router, with the optical fiber, with the switch and edge devices. So everything has to be tailored to the resources that we have. So we are really getting the best out of an infrastructure that remains hardware driven anyhow.
Okay, and AI aside, if one can say that, um, have you got any closing thoughts about maybe what the next, maybe more immediate steps are going to be with NaaS, and maybe you could also maybe look out a little way and see.
Yes, yes. So we have a very solid roadmap for NaaS. We had the two previous products, the Cloud Connect, the Ethernet. We launched the QSI. From now on, all products will be NaaS oriented. But then we need not to forget that we have all the traditional services that has to be NASified, let me say. So with a very progressive approach, we will put into the NaaS platform the most demanded services. We will have the two platforms in parallel, the traditional way of ordering, but also the new one. And of course, we will not do straightforward. It will be really based on the customer demands. For instance, internet access is super demanded. I'm expecting that customer will love to have in NaaS, and this is in our roadmap. There are other services that maybe are more traditional, which will arrive later. Not everything will arrive at the same time, because we really want to be very pragmatic. We don't want just to have a buzzword that everything is in the NaaS. We put in the NaaS exactly what the customers are asking for.
Okay, well, it does seem to me with the NaaS model that making things simple is a really difficult business.
Yes, we hide the complexity, but this is our task as a service
Yeah,
provider.
yeah.
We're used to that, but this is exactly what we want to do. Show simple what it is not, so that it's easy for the customer and a good responsibility for us that we can handle well.
Antonella, thank you. It's been a great pleasure.
I
Very,
enjoyed a lot.
thank you very much indeed.